Let's begin by talking first about the impending food crisis. According to you, how acute is really the crisis first, so to say, and what's really the way out?
Well, the impending food crisis is of two kinds. One is purely quantitative terms. Fortunately, government has still stock of wheat and rice. It will take us until the next Rabi season, and we hope this year's crop will be normal. The other is the quality of food in terms of protein, structure, pulses. They are now in very high price. Prices have gone up. Food inflation has gone up to 20% or so. So the people who are already malnourished will get further malnourished. Nearly 1/4 of our population is either undernourished or malnourished. So I would say it is serious from the point of view of those who have less purchasing power because of the high price. Today in the world as a whole, malnutrition is largely due to not to lack of food in the market, but lack of purchasing power. So there is this serious problem, and we have to ensure that the production of all these essential commodities, pulses and so on, goes up as soon as possible.
You know, I'm going to talk to you about an impending need for perhaps a second green revolution. There was one largely steered by you. Do you think the time is right and ripe for, so to say, about a second revolution coming in on that front?
The second revolution is unlikely to come now for the simple reason. The first revolution, really, if you want to go into the history of it, it was four major factors were responsible. One was technology. Technology is always a prime mover of change. Second was services which can take technology to the field, like for example, lab to land, seeds, fertilizers, and so on. Thirdly, public policies in input-output pricing. Ultimately, for the farmers, the economics of farming, which is above all, finally, the farmers' enthusiasm. Today, the last ingredient is completely missing. Farmers are frustrated. According to the National Sample Survey Organization, 45% of farmers who were interviewed want to quit farming. 70% of our population is below the age of 35, and 70% of them live in villages. They don't want to go to farming. The young people don't want to go to farming. So without ultimately, you see, you can't have a revolution without the revolutionaries.
That's right.
The real revolutionaries are farmers. And without their cooperation, we can be talking anything, it will never happen.
It's actually going to be just plain simple talk in drawing rooms like this. But, you know, I'm going to talk to you more from the farmer's point of view, from the youth that one wants to get into farming. The fact is that farming as an occupation, a profession, is very, very vulnerable to, say, climate changes, which is really beyond human control. I mean, your entire crop can really go for a toss and you can perhaps do nothing about it. What can be done from the government's point of view to somehow incentivize people to get back to farming, to look at agriculture as a profession, so to say?
At the moment, I would say there are not very many incentives for farmers to get back. The interest rates are still high, and marketing is very uncertain, except wheat and rice, where government through the Food Corporation of India purchases it. Although support price announced for 24 commodities, including pulses, in the others it is not implemented. And as you said, farming is the most riskiest profession. One day there is drought, one day there is flood. One can have, a farmer has no control. I have seen in the Punjab excellent wheat crop today. Tomorrow they are all flat by hailstorm. Heavy hailstorm comes at night. Now what kind of insurance we have to insulate farmers from this kind of calamity? And if climate change is going to add further to the problem, because one immediate impact of climate change is higher temperature and probably altered precipitation. In the Punjab, Haryana, Western UP, which is our mainstay for the PDS, public distribution system, the heartland of the Green Revolution, wheat production will come down by 6 million tons if you increase the temperature by 2 degrees and so on. So there are both current calamities and impending dangers to agriculture. And since farming is risky, and the younger farmers don't want to take to farming, and this is going to be our greatest challenge. How are you going to encourage youth in farming? There is also increasingly feminization of agriculture. We don't have support services for women farmers. They are increasing numbers everywhere, but they require special services like creches, daycare centers and so on. Now none of these are available. So we don't have a planning to make the farming attractive to the younger generation, farming attractive enough to for present farmers to retain in farming. Otherwise they will sell their land today real estate prices have gone up. In fact, all the land near Delhi, where I used to have my national demonstration in the 60s, they are all now malls. Malls are big hotels and so on. So land is shrinking resource for agriculture. We have to produce more.
But sir, it almost sounds that this is perhaps a lost proposition. I mean, what can the government really do for people to get back to agriculture, to attract the young, professionally trained to perhaps practice agriculture? It's perhaps a lost proposition then.
There is the National Commission on Farmers.
Can any legislation be done to boost agriculture, so to say, at least people's
legislation alone won't help. Legislation won't help. Legislation is probably needed to protect prime farmland from going out of agriculture. Today it is not easy, because for farmers land is life. And we have seen what has happened in West Bengal and so on. It's not easy today, even for SEZ, Special Economic Zone, to take away the land of farmers. But on the other hand, if farmers start to remain in farming, farming must be economically attractive. And that aspect of farming is not receiving that amount of attention, because we are always concerned with what we call the consumer. But we forget the fact, unlike in Western countries, industrialized countries, the largest majority of consumers are farmers.
That's right.
Because our population, if 2/3 of the population are farmers, they have to eat also. The fact there is so much malnutrition in this country is not because a few urban consumers are eating less. It is because the rural producers are eating much less. And because even if I have jowar or bajra, 60% of our land is unirrigated. It's rain-fed, as we say. Entirely dependent upon rainfall. This is where our pulses, our oil seeds, many of our crops are grown in those areas, including animal husbandry, for example. But then they don't know if there is a drought, there is a problem, and we have no method of insulating them from the vagaries of the monsoon.